Hello, sorry about that. Prevention of heart attacks and strokes. We've known for many years that the leading cause of death for women is cardiovascular disease, but women are also often undertreated. So women are more likely to die of a heart attack. They're more likely to have a stroke. 60% of strokes are in women. And again, women are less likely to be prescribed anti-lipid therapies, statins, etc. They're less likely to be prescribed a blood thinner. They're less likely to have bypass surgery or stents. They're less likely to have a heart attack probably diagnosed. And the support for research and more data is really needed, change is needed. On this slide, there are some key facts here that I'd like to talk about. Obviously, plaques contribute to heart attacks, but it's... Hello? Sorry, it's the blood clot that causes most heart... 80% Testing. 87% of strokes are ischemic, which means they're caused by a blood clot, either formed in the brain, cerebral thrombosis, or lodged in the brain, where they're coming from another part of the body and then entering the brain. Women also have higher platelet counts than men. Estrogen stimulates platelet production, but can also prevent platelet activation. So that means that for women, while they're before their menopause, they have higher platelet counts but are less likely to have a stroke. Women also suffer heart attacks at lower levels of plaque burden than men because we have smaller arteries and these are more easily blocked. And women have higher risk of microvascular disease, increasing with low estrogen levels. All of these build up to a factor of greater risks for women, and that is different than for men. Cardiovascular disease is also the leading cause of death for everybody. It's one death every 1.6 seconds, more than cancer, more than dementia, 20 million global deaths per year. The estimated cost by 2030 is $1 trillion. Many of these deaths are preventable. And as you mentioned, many of the people in this room have either a friend, a relative, a close relative who's had a heart attack or stroke. For me, it was my dad. And so when I had the opportunity to work in this field, I was all in. So how do you prevent a heart attack or stroke? The current treatment is, as the American Heart Association recommends, is aspirin plus a P2Y12 inhibitor. The leading drug in this class is Plavix. It's been around for 30 years. However, it does not work well for everybody. Clopidogrel is prescribed in 90% of cases, and the second leading drug in this class is ticagrelor, which leads in branded revenue because it's still has branded pricing. These drugs have significant black box warnings and don't work well for everybody. So a new best-in-class must be both safer and more effective. Our drug DT678 in the green box at the top, developed at the University of Michigan, converts quickly in the body to the active metabolite of clopidogrel without generating other metabolites which cause damage, including increasing bleeding risk and stroke risk. Our drug works well for all patients regardless of their CYP metabolic function. And again, because it generates that same active metabolite, this is the basis of a faster accelerated 505(b)(2) pathway, which we've met with the FDA and discussed with them. Our drug works quickly, efficiently, and safer with no drug interaction because it doesn't interact with 6 CYP enzymes, which metabolize most drugs in the liver. We have a clear path to NDA approval, market differentiation, and revenue. And again, for those patients who use clopidogrel and it does not work well for them, either because they have a loss of function mutations in CYP enzymes in the liver, or they have diabetes, or they have hepatic impairment, they're more likely to have a heart attack, stroke, or death. How does our drug stack up with the competition? You can see here it's better on many fronts. I won't go through them all, but I would like to say that most importantly, many patients who've had a heart attack and stroke are on other drugs. They have other comorbidities, and our drug does not have any CYP drug interactions, which is how most drugs are metabolized. But you can see it's best in class. We've raised $6 million to date. And with that, we filed a US and China IND. We've completed 4 phase 1 studies and are in phase 2 in China. We're currently raising a seed round of $7.5 million. We have $3 million of that committed. We believe our most likely exit is at the NDA stage, and comparable exits to pharmaceutical companies that have cardiovascular and metabolic disease portfolios are listed here. There are many companies looking for new drugs. If we remain independent and do a Series A or an IPO, we can also be revenue generating in 2028, which is a relatively short path to revenue generation. We have a very experienced team, many of whom have dedicated their lives to cardiovascular and drug research. We have a number of approved successful drugs. Myself, I have a PhD in chemistry, a severe motivation to help patients who've suffered heart attacks and strokes. I've also worked on many approved successful drugs. Charlie, the chairman of the board, was a cardiovascular research fellow who also developed Lipitor, which is one of the world's most successful cardiovascular drugs. Our co-founder, Eugene Chen, is a professor of cardiovascular medicine at the University of Michigan. And he was also somebody who cloned the GLP-1 gene and worked on Byetta, which was the first GLP-1. We also have a very well-rounded team of medical and commercial experts. We have a very distinguished scientific advisory board. And with that, I would like to thank you and ask if you have any questions. Please do contact me if you have any questions after. And thank you very much for your time today.
Okay, questions? Go ahead. You should just be able to grab the mic, make sure the button's pressed, and
thank
talk.
you. Quick question on, I know in the first couple slides you talked about, women and how they are more prone to and, less diagnosed. But, your drug is really applicable to anybody, right? So in terms of clinical trial, regulatory strategy, are you developing a strategy specifically for women or going after a women indication first, or this is really for anybody with the type of indication you're looking for in CVD?
So obviously getting approval is one step. The next step is how do you become best in class? You don't become best in class overnight. So after we've finished the requirements for approval, that is when I see our application for women's health in my estimation, looking at stroke prevention in particular, looking at microvascular disease, which is more prevalent in women. These are the things that will help us differentiate in the marketplace and increase our market share. And that's something that the current drugs, nobody's doing that because nobody's continuing to develop these drugs. They're old, nobody's doing additional studies. So that's where I think that we can really make a difference for women. But first of all, we have to get approval, and then we can do those studies in the particular indications that affect women the most.
All right, we have time for one more question.
Thanks for your pitch. I'm kind of curious. I noticed that a lot of the clinical trial research was being done in China. So how do you sort of see your pathway translating from China to back to the States?
So that's a great question. The CYP2C19 mutation that affects the metabolism of clopidogrel in particular, the most prevalence of those mutations is in China and Asia. So our strategic partner was most interested in the Chinese market. So once we've got approval in the US, which we think will be first, our next approval is in China. 60% of people in India, China, Korea, Japan, Asian countries have a loss of function mutation, which means that they're more likely to have an adverse event if treated with clopidogrel. So we believe that that's why we focused on a strategic partner in China. After that, we then will look at other Asian countries and then Europe.
I see. So US, China, then Europe.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense.
All right, Jessica, thank you very much.